Hey everyone, Rhonda here with another little tiny tip for you. I just wanted to talk to you briefly about how to read a color wheel and a pigment wheel, because this is kind of one of the fundamental things of art, is knowing your color wheel, having some color theory. I'm going to put a link in the description to the color theory class that I'm taking, and I highly recommend. I think every artist should study color theory at some point, because it's the foundation of everything we do. So I'll also have a link to these color wheel and pigment wheel that I'm using here. These ones come from the Jansen Art Online. That's the where I'm taking my courses through. And I'll put a link to them where you can download these same color wheels. So this is your standard color wheel. And most of us have seen these. You can buy the little ones, all that kind of thing. And this basically describes color, or the hue of the color to us. So you have on your color wheel, you have your three primaries, so red, blue, and yellow. And a primary is a color that can't be broken down into any smaller pieces. You can't make a yellow by mixing two other colors. So you'll see on color wheels, sometimes they have different colors at the top versus having, like, they might have yellow at the top. This one here has red at the top because it's based off of physics, and red is 0 degrees to the light, or like it's the top of the rainbow, the first color that shows up. So you got your primaries are red, blue, and yellow. Then if you mix two primaries, so say you mix your red and blue, you get what's called a secondary, so your violet. So mix red and blue, you get violet. Mix red and yellow, you get orange. And mix yellow and blue, and you get green. Those are your secondary colors because you're mixing two primaries to get your secondaries. Then if you mix three primaries, or alternatively if you mix two secondaries, you get what's called a tertiary color. Now some color wheels will call these colors here tertiaries. That's not the that's more of a it's a bit of a different color theory way of describing it. The original color theory was that tertiaries were the ones towards the center of your wheel. They are made by mixing two secondaries together to get a tertiary. So orange and green would give you a tertiary, green and violet and orange. Or you can mix all three primaries together in various proportions to get these tertiary colors. Now, tertiary colors do tend to be quite a lot more toned. They're closer to the center of the wheel. Your colors on the outside of the wheel are going to be more intense, and your colors on the inside will be more toned. So your earth tones and that sort of thing tend to be on the inside. They're tertiary colors. These colors here are actually known as intermediate colors in original color theory. So an intermediate color is made by mixing a primary and a secondary together. So if you mix red and orange, you get red orange. If you mix yellow and orange, you get yellow orange, that sort of thing. So these are called your intermediate colors. So that's your basic color wheel. You can use the color wheel to do different color schemes and that sort of thing. One of the big important ones that I pay a lot of more attention to is complements. So your complements are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. And I don't always paint with complements, but what I do is it's always in the back of my mind. So for example, like a violet and a yellow are complements. They're across each other on the color wheel. Why I always keep that in mind is because if you mix violet and yellow, you're going to go towards gray. And when you're mixing, so if you're working on your on something and you've got your violets here and your yellows right here, and you end up mixing the two of them, your colors are going to get dirty and gray. I'll put a link in the description to where I talked about muddy mixes, and that video will help you with understanding some of that. But that's the one thing that you really need to know, is that if you're mixing two complements, they're going to go towards the center of the wheel and become very gray. Second thing I just wanted to talk to you about was the pigment wheel. So a pigment wheel is basically a color wheel with the various pigments on it. And I'll pop a couple of them up on the screen. This is the Jansen Art one. So this is the one that is for the heritage paints that I use. You can find them online with hundreds of pigments listed. I tend to use this one just because these are the paints that I use. So the important thing to know about a pigment wheel is that you've got each of your pigments listed. So if I'm looking at, say, one of my paints here, like, okay, so this is my Naphtha Red Light. It's a PR9 is the pigment number. So if I look for that and I find it here, I can tell that this is close to a red orange. So when I'm mixing it, I know that it's going to lean towards the orange side with my reds. Whereas if I use my Naphthol red, which is a PR170 pigment, I know that's going to lean closer to the violet side. It's going to be more of a stronger, just plain red. So that's how you can kind of tell where things are going to sit on the wheel. For example, another one is like your yellow oxide. Yellow oxide has a PY42 pigment. And so it's right along the yellow line. So it's a yellow, but it's very toned. So that's why it's closer to the center of the wheel. So that's just a quick reading of the pigment wheel. There's a lot of information to go into reading a pigment wheel, too much for just a tiny tip. But I just wanted to share that with you so that you can have a little bit of a better understanding of the color wheel and the pigment wheel.